right, welcome to Night Shift. We're still recovering from this beatdown that UCF just took at the hands of Kansas State at, dangerous Manhattan, Kansas. I can't even, what's the final score? 44-31. Was not that close. I'm Eric Lopez, Andrew Gluchov, Bryson Turner. I think Kyle Nash will join us for a few minutes before he gets on the road to Jacksonville to watch quality football. Unfortunately, we didn't see much of that tonight. UCF loses 44-31. Was not that close. Kansas State. What's the total yardage here we ended up with, folks? It was a lot.
Are you talking about for the team
for
or
Kansas
for the
State?
game?
For Kansas State. For Kansas State. How many?
536.
We're going to break down what happened to the defense. Kansas State. Timmy McClain start. Send your comments right now. We are live everywhere on social media. We're going to address this and get to the bottom of this because I know a lot of you are very upset, annoyed right now, like I am. All right, Drew, real simple question. What the bleep happened?
Well, Kansas State was a better team. First things first, you're playing on the road, so you already have a handicap there. UCF is not a good road team under Gus Malzahn. We've seen it each of these 3 seasons that he's been here. So you already have that working against you. You have to break momentum and then basically put your foot on their neck and not let up, because if you let them back in the game, momentum shifts, crowd gets into it, that becomes difficult. Then you just had a lot of execution problems, bad angles on defense, linebackers being absolutely chewed out. The defensive line was non-existent in its pressure against the Kansas State offensive line. But I mean, you're dealing with Great Plains corn-fed beef now. It's a very different game than against AAC talent. Then you had a quarterback who tried playing hero ball too often. Instead of throwing the ball away or live and play another day, he'd hold on to the ball too long. He ran out of bounds. He takes sacks, threw an interception, and sure, he made got some positive gains here and there, but I mean, those are 50-50 balls. You don't want to throw those. You need to be smarter than that. So there's a reason why Timmy McClain was bounced out of USF and is the backup at UCF, and you saw it tonight. Great talent, all the talent in the world. He needs to work on his mental aspect before he is ready for prime time.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Drew. I mentioned last week, this was going into the Villanova game. I said, Timmy McClain, don't be Josh Allen. And what I meant by that was Josh Allen, the Bills quarterback, tends to be a hero ball. Cost him the Jets game with the turnover. Don't try to be a hero. And to your point, he tried to be a hero when it just wasn't there. Is that youth? Is that exuberance? I think you described it all very well. You got to know when you live to play another day. Throw the ball away. Don't take some of the sacks that he did. And he was lucky, Drew. There was a play or two where he just threw the ball up for grabs and it was caught, but it was not the most well-advised throws. It was I just didn't feel comfortable with him all night from a decision-making standpoint.
Oh, well, that's the 50-50 balls I'm referring to. There were a few of them. Yeah. One actually ended up being a third down conversion. Another one ended up being an interception. That's what happens with the 50-50 balls. Things like that happen. The key is don't do them. Live to play another play or another series. Be smart. That one where he never even looked at his check down, RJ Harvey, who was standing there with no one in the same zip code as him, kept looking, and ended up losing a massive ton of yards, and ultimately, led to the Colt Boomer missed field goal, and that was really where the game truly turned. The momentum was any chance of momentum was gone. Kansas State had all the momentum. The fans were fully invested at that point. They were not able to come back from that. This is still a team that has work to do. You're working with the backup quarterback. You're going to have problems. This is a good Kansas State team. They were able to take UCF out of their element. Their running game, which is Kansas State's defensive specialty, shined here. They did a really good job against one of the best running attacks in the country. UCF had to rely on the pass, and that's it'll make or break you. And eventually they broke.
But my counter to that is we're going to see a lot of that moving forward. Teams are going to try to take the run, make Timmy McClain beat them. I think the frustrating thing, because you're right, Kansas State offensively dominated UCF defensively. We'll get into the UCF defensive breakdowns because there were plenty. But I think what's frustrating to fans, and we're already getting this in some of the comments, and I can relate to this. This is what's frustrating, Drew. It's one thing to get beat. You get beat by the better team, clean game, so be it. But when you shoot yourself in the foot and contribute, it drives people bonkers, Drew. That's, I think, why there's a lot of frustration on this. We'll get to the comments here, but
it's unforced errors. That's what it comes down to.
That's right, and that's why I'm angry.
Most frustrating.
That's what I'm angry about, because now that you're no longer in the American, you might have been able to get away with this in some of those games. You're not going to get away with that here in the Big 12, and whether people like it or not, people care about this team doing very well. It's important for this program to do well. Let's get to some of the comments. It's Drew and Bryson, and we'll get to Bryson. I promise. We got. I got to let this go.
Well, how about I give you just a little bit of a break, Drew, because Chet Bortz actually has a question. Yes. How many rushing yards did UCF have in the second half? So that is actually something that we can look at right here in the stat broadcast stat sheet right here. So if you look right here, UCF had 44 rushing yards in the second half. You can see in that stat right here. Not ideal, I would say, right there. Not ideal at all.
What did you see, Drew, that shut down the UCF? Was it just that Kansas State deciding in the second half, we're not going to let them beat us with the run. We're just going to be more. I mean, part of it, too, is Kansas State offense was on the field a lot. They just controlled tempo.
Well, UCF had big plays. You look at the big plays, they happened largely in the first half. McClain to Harvey in the first quarter, the big touchdown to Hudson second quarter. Early third quarter was the second Hudson touchdown, but I was right in the beginning, and then it tapers off. That it started going downhill after that, and they weren't able to generate nearly as much. Same with the rushing. The biggest run was in the first quarter. So I think part of it was Kansas State kind of aligning, because remember, UCF comes from a different style of play, in the American, really an Eastern team versus a Central team. They had different styles, East, West, Central, whatever. So they're built more for speed. It took Kansas State a while to kind of adjust to it and then start to realize, all right, we're going to dare you to do this. And they committed more against the run because they know that's what UCF's bread and butter was, and that's what their defensive strength was. That was always, they averaged less than 2 yards a carry coming into this game, giving up. And UCF did pretty well, but they went way below their own season average, only getting, 143 yards on the ground. They averaged 4.2 yards a carry versus the 7 that Kansas State had. I mean, their offensive line just absolutely manhandled UCF's defense line, which was supposed to be their strength. And it just exposed them for really not ready for prime time.
Yeah, literally. We got some questions about comments. Motion Star, why did Ricky Barber stop playing? I don't know if that,
they had him on a snap count.
They mentioned that on the broadcast.
Mentioned a few times on the broadcast that he was limited in how much he played. The real question is, and this is where the hypothetical comes in, because of the strength of the running game inside from Kansas State, would a healthy Barber made enough of material difference to really change how this game went? I'm not entirely sure because of how one-sided that position group was.
Well, this is one comment that I think kind of gets him.
Let's introduce Kyle Nash, who has joined us. A man who has got another doubleheader ahead of him. He's got the Jaguars on Sunday, so he'll at least get to see some good football this weekend at some point, unlike, us.
It's okay. They can't see me because of the branding anyway. No. What's up, guys?
Let me ask you this.
I was working on it.
I know, buddy. I know.
Let me ask you this, because I want to follow you up on the Ricky Barber. Ricky Barber obviously was on a snap count. We didn't hear anything about Ricky Barber, did we? At all? About him being banged up? I mean, and this is kind of the frustrating thing, Kyle, because you cover the NFL. In the NFL, there's we would know by Friday what everybody's status is. College football, it's like a mystery.
It can be. It can be.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, and I don't know if you remember me referencing this in the NightShift podcast here earlier in the week, Elo, but I had mentioned that they were talking about, I think it was post-game last week, that they were hoping to get him back. With Josh Saliskar had said that after the game. So in my mind, what you're referencing is the NFL is they have them, whether they're out, questionable, doubtful, whatever. Based on hearing that and what us discussing it as we did on Night Shift, it was either last week or on Thursday, I forget which, but in my mind, he was already questionable in the first place. So, but even if it was full strength, I'm with Drew. I'm not so sure this makes that big a difference. Maybe he doesn't break 100, but I think generally speaking, Drew has the right idea that this group's interior offensive line was pretty strong. And Giddens, listen, maybe Deuce Vaughn was that good, but I'm wondering why he didn't have as many snaps last year. Deuce Vaughn's the answer, right?
Deuce Vaughn. Yeah, I just hope this is not a start of a trend, and we make every running back this year look like freaking Barry Sanders.
I mean, he was this guy was a man possessed. He was breaking ankles on poor linebackers. Walter Yates, send him to the hospital. I think he has some broken bones down there from the amount of times he got cut to pieces.
But all the time we spent having questions about the secondary going into this game, it was really the linebackers in the front that prevailed, right? I don't know if you made the point yet, but there's, by my count, 165 yards. I'd have to look again. I will definitely have the correct number in night class on blackandgoldbanner.com when that does go up on the site. Where the heck's the bang? Come on. See, Jeff tells me to stop doing this.
We lost, Kyle. Everything's a counter. If we won, we have the soundboard,
But the punchline being, that is proof to your point, Drew, about the linebackers struggling in coverage, and that containment in general in the check down not being there.
Kansas State did a good job exposing the linebackers, didn't they? They
absolutely.
And I made this comment on Slack, and we got in an argument on Slack. I won't mention who I got in the argument with. You all can figure it out.
It's your work wife. We know. It's Jim.
But I said, did I not, Kyle? This team misses Tatum Bethune, a player like that.
I mean, sure.
And the reason I bring this up, because the fans are going to talk about the quarterbacks that are not here, and my point is, I don't think the quarterbacks that are not here is the issue. The issue is a player like Tatum Bethune. That's what hurts more than Luke.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I'll hand it right back to you, Drew. I like that you say a Tater like Tatum Bethune. It's hard for me to lament a guy that's 2 years gone.
No. And look, he's made the right decision, clearly. So, I mean, I'm not criticizing him.
There's nothing clear about getting past a mediocre, obsolete coach like Dabo Swinney in an obsolete conference. But you Noller. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, I'm also going to pour a little cold water on this, too. You say we need Tatum Bethune.
A player like a Tatum Bethune.
You have Jason Johnson. That's the guy who replaced Tatum. The one you're missing is Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste. You're missing Camp, who was better at outside containment and stuff like that. He was able to cover large. That's why they were able to run a nickel defense so often, is because he could cover a lot of field and do it well. Well, they don't have that. You have Walter Yates, who was supposed to be pushed into the second string. I mean, that explains everything. And his angles were absolutely atrocious. I mean, Giddens ate this guy for lunch. It was completely one-sided on as far as that aspect goes. But Tatum Bethune's a great player. But Kyle, you're absolutely right. He's 2 years removed, and Jason Johnson is an outstanding linebacker. Problem is, they never replaced Jean-Baptiste.
And with that in mind, too, the reason why I think we should focus on the linebacker spot, too, is this is the first time this year that the argument can be made that this is a full offense. You have athletes everywhere. You have tight ends that can make plays. And the guy who I feel like we did the make look like Barry Sanders, even though he may not be, would be Sanat, right? Ben Sanat had a game. What's he got there? 64 yards. Listen, I don't know that Giddens will get another 200-yard gain. I'm not going that crazy, but he's going to have a lot of other big games. All purpose, he had damn near 300. He may not do that again, but he's going to be a good player. He's going to make an impact against.
What's funny is they haven't used him as a full-time back. They had Trayshawn Ward, who's a transfer from FSU. They've been splitting, and Ward was out of the game, and it didn't matter. And Will Howard wasn't even close to healthy because he didn't run like he normally would, and they still tried.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what's so disappointing.
Well, there's so many pieces to this. There's the defensive ends who on routine plays got shoved away by their tackles to the point where they're 5 yards behind the play. I mean, go back and watch. It happened countless times.
I kind of felt like the interior did a lot of the work too for KSU there. I feel like the defensive tackles were handled in a way that obviously they were going to face the stiffest competition in this game, but I don't know that we'll have other interior O linemen that push these dudes around the same way. At least if you're a UCF fan, I hope not.
Yeah, and remember, this is not a bad Kansas State squad.
Correct.
They won the conference last year. They're still returning talent. We saw some tonight, and so I don't think this was a fluke. Kansas State, I think, is the better team. They're a little more cohesive. They were playing at home. They had that big advantage, and they didn't make as many high risk moves. See, the thing about what padded McLean's stats is there were a lot of jump balls that you had to have great receivers like a Kobe Hudson, jump up and just pull those things down. But those were high-risk plays. If you look back at Kansas State's plays, they were relatively safe for the most part. They were just really, really efficient at taking care of the basics of what was needed, opening the hole, giving protection, managing the mismatch. I mean, as you said, Sanat just absolutely carved up the linebackers. No one can keep up with him.
Well, again, 165 yards to guys that aren't receivers. That plays right into your point about low risk, right, Drew?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those are your checkdowns and your safety valves. You're taking advantage of. You have a quarterback that's not 100%, so he's going to make some less risky moves, and it worked to perfection.
And we need to be careful using the term check down, though, Drew, because to your point as well, in exposing that linebacker group with the tight ends, they were sometimes where they were clearly the top target, right?
Well, at that point, I mean more of like the play design. Obviously, I'm running this play. These are normally the hot routes, but you're probably going to get open, so I'm going to keep an eye on you.
Side chance you get the big play, shoot it, but we're really looking here. I see where you're going.
Yeah. So I mean, the way the play is developed, a smart quarterback recognizes that, and you go with the hot hand, and you use the mismatch, you use the coverage, miscues, and we saw a lot of them. Remember, Kent State had its way with UCF's defense on short passing plays. Mm-hmm. UCF's worst defensive runs were outside containment issues. We saw that tonight.
It's almost like they were watching some tape there, Drew. I hear you.
And nothing changed. This is the same team. Now you're actually playing competition that's actually worth something.
Yeah, well, and in fairness, there's a lot of I think the leap in talent was huge, and I think that was a factor. By the way, I came in making jokes earlier, Bryson. The comment you put up on the screen earlier about, I don't want to declare a moral victory, but there were some positives to pull out of this game. I think that's an accurate statement, and it's worth covering my face for. I think this is a good point. Like, I'm joking, Bryson. No, this is a good comment to point out.
That's Team Friedman, by the way, who made the comment. Let's give credit to the person making the comment. Thank you to everybody tuning in. We got more and more people tuning in right now, as a matter of fact. So we'll keep going.
But with all that in mind, I think there were a lot of great takeaways. Yes, at the end of the game, and I know Elo and Drew are going to take their turns with their proverbial baseball bats to beat on how Timmy McClain closed this game. But listen, it was close as it was due to a lot of positive plays by McClain on the night. To ask for a backup to do better than what he did with as many third and longs as he faced, with as big a deficit as he eventually got handed in the fourth quarter, I think is worth some mention.
Let's not forget, by the way, that Timmy McClain is listed as a sophomore. So this is a guy that is on, I would argue, does not have the experience that John Rice Plumlee has had. Let's just put it like that. There's also the fact that he was under pressure. Like against Villanova, he didn't have any pressure at all during that. It's Villanova. But here, you can a lot of his troubles, I think, really stemmed in the second half where the pressure was mounting, the game was really close, and the offense was trying to do something with it. And unfortunately, he didn't, I think, have the ability there to just, like you said, Drew, just throw it away and fight another day. He was just kind of he just keeps on trying and trying to see, like he had all day in the pocket. He still tried to make something work out of that, but sometimes you just need to know when to bail, and he didn't know when to do that. And I feel like John would have known that. That's the experience right there.
But I will defend Drew and my decision making. You can't just because he doesn't have a ton of it. He's a backup. You still have to make good decisions. And Drew, he made some costly decisions that hurt this game. Now, is he going to get better for it? Perhaps, but that we said he can't make in this league now in the Big 12. You will not win making those type of mistakes. You can get away with that in the American. You can get away with that as the starting quarterback at South Florida. You're not going to get away with that here in this level of football.
I think the statement Drew made in the chat regarding this, and I think this is another instance where you're just a bit more, I don't want to say negative to me, Drew, but like I think you can be more critical than me at times of certain things. But the one statement I think you'll make is he did expose that he's a backup tonight, right? Like, but do we know if we would have had that much better decision making, or would have seen, I should say, we as a football audience, would we have seen better decision making from John Rice Plumlee necessarily in that situation? I don't know, because this is another guy who puts the thing on his back and tries to take control. So we say all this at Timmy McClain's expense, which, by the way, earlier in the game, he was making those decisions rather properly. He had time, maybe look down the field a little extra. Okay, it's not there. The guy's bearing down. I'm going to throw it away. The guys, and it happens one time late in the game where the announcers finally decide to, acknowledge line play and stuff. And Timmy McClain, these guys are so horrible.
Don't get us started on the broadcast. Don't even get me started on the broadcast. But on that, let me just say this in Timmy's defense. He does have a nice deep ball that he threw a couple, one on the touchdown there. And I think Darren Hinshaw called a good game.
Oh, absolutely.
I think better days will be ahead for Timmy, but where he gets himself in trouble is when he tries to ad lib. And I think, to your point, that's where John Rice Plumlee ran into that problem a little bit last year in particular. Who knows what would have happened if he was playing? He's not, obviously.
Yeah, but Eric, here's the thing. We talked about the third and longs, which UCF had a lot of. I mean, UCF averaged 11 yards on third down. I mean, that's bad. Third and 11 on average. Woof.
And by the way, how many did he convert, dude? You know what I'm saying?
Not enough. That's not
fair though. Like,
the answer is 3.
5 and 12. They were 5 and 12 for the game.
Yeah, 3 of those conversions were on 9 yards plus. I mean that's
3 in the first half. He got another one. Now, granted, one of those conversions wasn't him, because to your point that you're about to make, if I don't, because you're a hater, just kidding. Was the long Richardson run. So we obviously.
No, I was going to let you have that because I know you're a big Richardson fan. No, I was actually going to point out where actually McClain was part of the cause of those long third downs. Especially in the fourth quarter when you lost 12 yards because you held onto the ball too long and lost the yards, and then later on a big 10-yard loss because he held onto the ball too long, didn't throw it away, and got taken down. Those were both quarterback sacks.
That big 10-yarder doesn't happen. We're not talking about this on this show. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion.
Well, he had 24 net or 24 negative yards on the day.
So basically half of them were on that play.
Well,
right, we're dragging on one play here. Let's.
That's what I'm saying.
What is the most important thing to fix moving forward here? What They're going to host a Baylor team that's terrible. They just got blown out by Texas. They've got big issues. It's going to be a big home crowd, 3:30. I think this is you better win this game.
Oh, here we go. Week 4 must win. Let's go. Or sorry, week 5 must win. Here we go.
In Eric's defense, you're playing against a team that's not as good as you. Kansas
I don't want to hear that. Yeah.
Kansas State was a good team. Baylor is not a good team. So, this is a game they need to win. It's their first home game. You have to stop the bleeding, reestablish a positive momentum as you go into the second, heading towards that second half of the season. So this is definitely a potential momentum shifter. They drop the ball against Baylor, and the wheels can really fall off.
I agree 100% with that. I agree. And look at the schedule after Baylor. You go to Kansas, who I think has if you guys think Will Howard's good, the Kansas kid Daniels is way better than Will Howard.
Oh, he's the most dynamic quarterback in the conference, easily.
I think
Ewers is a good quarterback.
This already. Yeah, absolutely.
But we've seen what Kansas did last year.
Regardless
before
of your
injuries get caught up.
Regardless of your Leipold fanhood, Drew, you've been talking about Daniels at quarterback for some time.
Yeah, once again, I am the Florida representative of the Lance Leipold fan club.
Woo, that's gonna be an awkward week that week.
Let's not forget Keaton Slovis of BYU is no slouch either.
Well, but UCF doesn't play BYU. Thank goodness.
As far as in the Big 12, I mean.
But look what happened today. Kansas beat BYU, and I
watched that. Daniels. If Daniels is healthy, they're going to score points, and that's my disappointment, guys. We talk so much about this defensive line and how this defensive line is good, but Kai, I want Drew said they got exposed today by Kansas State. Do you agree with that? Did we overrate this D line?
Yeah, 1,000%. Listen, and listen, I was waving the flag hard for these guys, and you heard my lead to back Drew up. Listen, I don't think Ricky Barber makes that big a difference.
You hear that, Jeff?
I'm not going to say so much to say that they look small. But they were very certainly dominated.
Isn't this one of those things though? When you're getting beat up in the line, you look smaller than maybe you actually are when you're getting physically beat up.
There you go, exactly, and I agree with you on that. And listen, I don't know. What brought KSU to the championship? Listen, we could talk about Duggan and Max Duggan and all that stuff that he did last year with TCU and KSU. Oh my God, it was a great game and blah blah blah. Which it really was a great game. But you don't get to that point without starting in the trenches first, right? And everybody across the board, coaches, coaching assistants, players, all had the odd concept that the depth was going to be the issue. And we saw that here, that depth in the trenches was it. Now, while Coach Williams had said the biggest growth on defense in terms of depth was on the D-line, we didn't see that tonight. Conversely, I like the offensive line play. Did they play perfectly? No. But if they came out and continued to perform like this for the rest of the year and saying this is the line and they're going to play like this for the rest of the year, hey, I'm happy with it. This is better than the line was last year. Yeah, they're playing that much better competition from what I can tell. And look at what the running game did early to provide balance, to give McClain an opportunity to keep the Knights in the game. The offensive line was a big part of that.
Timmy McClain had all the time in the world in the pocket on some throws. On some throws. That's something we would have given an arm and a leg to see last season. So yeah, the O-line is definitely
except Tylen Grable. I think someone needs to do a wellness check on this guy because he was beaten so badly in this game. There may be nothing left of him.
But how much? I mentioned this on the podcast. UCF played Villanova and Kent State, and with all due respect to Boise State,
you keep insisting on
they're not. I don't think this team was. They did not look like a team that was battle ready for this level of competition compared to Kansas State, who just had a physical battle with Missouri last week. UCF got hit in the mouth right from the get-go in the first drive. I wonder if some of the players read the clippings too much about how Kansas State's kind of banged up and all this or that, and they thought, hey, we're going to do our thing because we've dominated these teams so far, and he got hit in the mouth early.
It was 24.
They kept it close. They kept it
24
close.
all.
I would argue Kansas State helped.
The train fell off the tracks when the penalties started happening, the costly penalties happened, and the mistakes got made in the second half.
Don't say that too
loud. They got
Bryson.
tired. You make mistakes when you get tired. And that's what happened to him in the fourth quarter. You look at the fourth quarter, the wheels fell off. I mean,
wait a minute. The big mistakes Bryson's referring to are in the third, Drew.
But the game wasn't decided in the third quarter. It was when the wheels fell off in the fourth quarter.
Whether you like it or not.
The wheels fell off in the fourth quarter, and I will actually put it to one play.
Let's just say the lug nuts came loose in the third quarter. Let's put it like that. The wheels.
Yeah, I mean, third and 24 converted to even keep the next drive going, for goodness sake. But nobody wants to talk about that.
I mean, there are just weird plays. Even the announcers were dumbfounded, but of course they were dumbfounded because they were dumb.
They were dumbfounded. Hey, hold on. Wait, let me just say this because Kyle, you're the witness. We said
I vote Devin Garner for a Razzie for bad sportscaster of the year.
For acting like a broadcaster.
I warned everybody. These are Big. If you're expecting quality officiating from Big 12, you're going to be very disappointed.
Well, hold on. I don't think officiating is an issue tonight. Do you?
No. But I'm saying there were some calls that people are upset. I think there were some questionable calls on both sides, etc. I mean, I think was the roughing the quarterback on they called on UCF. I thought that was. Look, that's 2023 football. They call a lot of tippy tap stuff like that.
Well, that wasn't.
You got to be smart.
He took some extra steps and got an extra hit on a guy because he was hurt.
And that's to Drew's point. It's a 50-50. Don't put yourself in that situation.
I agree 100%. I don't bring in a world we're living in where player safety is getting what it has. There's a big lawsuit settlement targeting penalties get reviewed every time. All of this is a thing. If you can't adjust your brain to the fact that they're watching that more, you're the problem at this point.
But no, I just
G-Dot at will.
Because G-Dot wrote
G-Dot at risk.
There you go. G-Dot wrote terrible penalties late, killed any momentum we were trying to build. Look, you got to be smarter, and I didn't think we played smart, and that is worrisome to me. If you're going to be successful the rest of the year, got to play smarter.
Gentlemen, very simply put, Trayvon Moore is brash with the roughing the passer call such that there is, where he had miles of time to pull up. And listen, you guys know me by now that I am trench warfare guy. I support.
That's true. Yeah.
He effed up, okay? And if he pulls up as he's supposed to and is expected to and had every opportunity to do, that would have been the fifth straight drive without a touchdown and would have rendered a third quarter with only 3 points given up. You think Timmy McClain would have been making the same mistakes then? I don't, because they would have still been able to run a balanced offense. He would have not had to carry the team throwing the ball. And I think that would have been a different set of momentum. Now, Drew's going to talk crap that I think this is that big of an impact on the game, but I'm sorry, it's where I'm at. And also, the other 15 yards that come from Lee Hunter's illegal hands to the face don't even occur because the ball is punted away on the next down, the fourth down.
Well, so let me play devil's advocate because I have to.
Yes, that's what you do.
Because Kyle was expecting it, and I would disappoint.
I would be disappointed if you two did. You two are agreeing too much right now.
I mean, the thing is, he basically said like you have to do it. Okay, I
did bait you, Drew. I will give you that much credit.
I will do it. So they give up the touchdown. It's 31-24.
No. I'm saying they don't give up the touchdown.
Oh, no. But this is what happened. They did give up the touchdown. It's
after the penalty.
It's 31-24. You have over a quarter. You don't have to abandon anything at that point. You have an eternity to do what you were doing. The problem was they relied so often on big plays and 50-50 balls. You know, the ones where Kobe Hudson just jumps up and pulls it out of the sky because he did it multiple times. And God bless him. What a talent.
3 catches turned into 119 yards, and he wasn't even done for the night. I hear you.
Yeah. By the way, we got Matt J says, amen, Kyle. We've got Lonely Bumblebee, Drew spitting facts. We got fan bases here divided on who's right of each. I love this. Just keep going.
Lonely Bumblebee said SOCG spitting facts.
All accurate tonight. That has happened. I've agreed with him some. You just accused me of agreeing with him too much.
Yeah, I mean, blind squirrels do find nuts occasionally.
Yeah, and I'm proud that you found one tonight. Moving on.
Yay! but the truth is there was a lot of time left. They could have settled back and just continue to try to play smart ball. The big play that really killed him was on that drive when Colton Booher missed the field goal. What set him up on the late field goal or the long field goal
was the Timmy McClain ball, right?
Was that really botched up play, and would that have changed the result of the kick? Who knows? But the fact that he had to kick it longer probably played a role, at least some role in it.
I assume there's a mental block of that 50, not block, but there's something more ominous about a 50-plus yard kick that I think changes the mentality of the approach. Drew, I will meet you there.
And the drive may have actually continued if they didn't have that big loss. But it did really derail any possible.
That came after a 3rd and 24, another big play, by the way, that you're choosing to omit in your assessment. That Johnny Richardson play even allowed us to get there. That's how desperate the momentum in this game was after those 2 big 15-yard penalties. Period, point blank, end of story.
Which, again, was put in a long situation because of mistakes that McClain made.
Johnny Richardson did have some really good plays, though. The fact, he had 2 amazing running plays that were just negated by mistakes, whether it was red zone play that forced them the field goal on that first half, or that other one where Timmy McClain had that.
By the way, Bryson set the table also for Timmy McClain and company to get the first lead change. No, I am right. Second lead change of the night, opening the second half. Right?
Johnny Richardson, just very impressive. Honestly, a very impressive game out of him tonight. And that's what I think a lot of people are really mad about, because you can look at a lot of people that had some really good games. Kobe Hudson, great game. Johnny Richardson, great game. Heck, even Timmy McClain, I would argue 75% of it, good game. But that 25%, the 25% is just ended up really killing him. And it's those little moments when you feel like when you look at the timeline, you just see that split where it's like, oh, if we just did this, then it could have been completely differently. That's where the anger comes.
I got to pour some cold water on this. I got to do it again. Because if you take out that 48-yard run by Richardson and you take out that 23, you know what his long on the day is? 4. This was UCF's game in a nutshell, was the big play. They
knew, though. That's been Gus Malzahn's approach since arrival. He's looking to he's looking to set things up to get that big punch, and that's why Richardson's there. I mean, I hear what you're pointing out, but Richardson's job in this offense is to be a home run hitter, right?
Right.
Kansas State is the offense to do this against.
Technically, they're all meant to be home run hitters in different ways. Richardson was able to find a couple of spots. RJ Harvey's longest run, 7. He was 14 of 39. He averaged less than 3 yards a carry. This was a running game that was largely neutered, and I think that was part of why that 23-yard gain happened, because it was 3rd and 21 at the UCF 15. Mm-hmm. They probably really bank with UCF.
How much of that, Drew, though, is not having Plumlee, who's a great runner himself? He's part of that running attack. Defenses have to respect John Rice Plumlee, whereas I think this defense tonight anyway was paying more attention to the UCF running backs than they were to Timmy McClain's running ability.
And that's what you can do to a backup too, by the way. I don't think there's any argument there.
Right. Yeah, I think the defense played a very smart game on Kansas State's side.
Sure.
They dared him to throw. You have a backup quarterback, dare him to win the game. And you know what? With the receivers that UCF had, they were able to keep in it for a while, but then maybe he got a little, maybe he was getting a little tired or something, but that's when mental mistakes largely happen. And that's why you notice across the board, both on offense and defense, the mistakes started compounding in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter when everything just fell apart. They're getting tired when Kansas State is running the ball as many times as they have. I mean, they ran the ball 40 times. Again, it's 30 times of just absolutely was carving them apart, averaging almost 7 yards a carry. That's going to tire you.
High as 10 at some points in the game, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're going to wear down. Mistakes happen. You can't adjust to a cut as well. You start making more angle errors. Your ability to wrap starts to decrease. I mean, just one thing after another.
Quarterback late.
Yeah, and you make
how much of
stupid
this
mental errors like just
But let me ask you-
guy down out of
but let me-
frustration.
let me ask you this though. How much of this is fixable? How much of this is a all season issue?
I would say most of it is fixable. Most of it. You have Barber who is on a snap count. That didn't help. The defensive line a little bit exposed. But you know what? What you do is you pivot and you change some of those tactics. Okay, we know our guys are a little bit under strength to be able to break in. You know what? Let's change our tactics a little bit. Let's drop back a little more. Have a little more of a contained rush instead of try to bull through, because the bullying isn't working. The defensive ends are getting pushed away. The defensive tackles just weren't penetrating enough. Okay, so let's change that. Maybe use it as an opportunity to use a linebacker to mess with a gap and cause a little bit of confusion. There's options there. John Rice Plumlee should be coming back within a handful of weeks. That'll help there, and you have the talent to still be competitive. You just most people, and myself included, we're expecting 7-5, 6-6. You know what? That's still very much on the table. I think 7-5 is very realistic. Maybe even 8-4 still.
Well, I know Eric
Big 12 conference has been.
That's what he said on Thursday.
Yeah, this Big 12
9 wins. Yes, I think this is a good enough roster in the Big 12, which is not a great league this year.
Exactly. They're looking down.
That's the thing.
But
And they got a very you could argue UCF has the easiest conference schedule of all the Big 12 teams.
It looks that way now.
I wouldn't go that far and say they had the
Look at it. Baylor struggling. Cincinnati is a mess. They look terrible with Emory Jones. My God,
But
I
their
can't believe
defense.
They did play well. They did a nice job without Nippert. Nippert helped them a little bit on that.
UCF has to play on the road.
Texas Tech lost their quarterback today. We don't know how long he's out for.
UCF has to play on the road against them. Remember,
Oklahoma State has no quarterback. My point is, all
that's
things
not a soft schedule. That's not a soft schedule.
It's a softer schedule than it could have been. Like, it could have been worse. You could have gotten
different
Texas.
Story. That's different than what you said, though.
Right. Yeah. Don't know. I heard what you heard too, Drew, and he's making the adjustment. Let him make the adjustment. The schedule is easier now than it looked. That's the correct statement, right?
Well, you didn't get Texas. You don't have Texas on the schedule. You don't have a TCU on the schedule. You don't have BYU. You don't have to go to Provo. All things considered, considering you had 6 road games, I think you got a favorable schedule. Take advantage, because that's not going to be the case every year, and certainly not with Utah coming into the league next year when Utah beats up on everybody.
Well,
3 of the 5 toughest road locations are places UCF has to travel to. Yeah, they avoid
but the
Austin,
bigger issue there is
Provo. They still got to go to Cincinnati. They still have to go to Lubbock, and they still have to go to Norman. And those are all hard places to play on the road, and especially Lubbock, Texas. Let's not understate how.
You sound like Trace Trauco for crying out loud now.
Hey,
come on.
The results
he's not throwing that hard.
The results speak for themselves. Texas Tech is an incredibly.
Are you guaranteeing a loss like Trace is in Lubbock?
I don't guarantee anything.
Very good.
Very good. Death, taxes. Come on, that's it.
That's the right answer.
Over in the Big 12.
And what in the Big 12? Where defenses go to die?
Yeah.
But
as soon as I saw this game, I was thinking to myself, this is we belong in the Big 12 because our defense is just letting Giddens absolutely carve it up. But
and unfortunately, whether you like it or not, that is part of the reason why the Big 12's reputation is not good in football.
Well, the Pac-12 has the same problem.
But they got good quarterbacks, though.
Apart too. That's a whole other question.
The Pac-12 does not even exist after this year. But at least the Pac-12 has good quarterbacks, like Kyle's guy, Michael Penix, who's right now like the front runner for the Heisman.
I don't know about the front runner, but he's definitely in the conversation.
I just said you picked him before the year.
I did pick him before it was cool. That's true.
But to your point, you're right. You're right about this, Drew. This program has to win on the road. They have to learn how to win on the road. And one of the things you have to do to win on the road is play smart. Play smart and clean.
I think we need to be careful with some other things too, because the road win stat is troubling when you look at it. There were also a lot of difficult games that also, on top of everything else, happened to be on the road. Like for the mystique of Nippert, I don't think is what it was when they went there to play the game With
No,
the
you're
team.
right. I mean, the head coach leaving, Luke Fickell leaving.
Yeah, Fickell leaving matters, right?
It's
Suddenly,
still-
the environment at Nippert itself might become a little thicker. You know.
Oh.
So, with all that in mind, where we need to be careful with the road stat is, listen, Timmy McClain having his first start, I should say his second start. No, his first road start. That's what I mean to say. His first road start against a defending conference champion in a program's first Power 5 conference game needs to be considered here. And this is the problem with relying only on team level stats. There are other elements that make those things happen. Says
Timmy McClain already has 4 road starts under his belt. This is not
right. We're treating.
You know that's not the same.
He's played ranked competition.
To Drew's point on this, in today's college football, it's hard to have a backup quarterback that has experience starting.
Yes.
That Timmy McClain has. I mean, this if this was 10, 20 years ago, it'd be different. But to Drew's point, Timmy McClain has played. Heck, he played in the bounce house as a visitor. So he's played in tough places. He could play better. I think he'd be the first to tell you he could play better. I think he will. I think
he would ask for himself too, but I'm not here to say everybody who's going to crap on his performance, I think they're doing it wrong. Was the fourth quarter bad? Sure. Nobody's arguing that. But the fact that there were 2 lead changes and where Timmy McClain made some plays, the 50-50 ball thing, I'll say this, Drew, maybe the ball wasn't perfect, but to get it in a place where you know you have your athletes to make a play like we've been talking about for Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson for the past 2 seasons, I'm not going to hold that against the guy to develop the kind of trust with them to get those plays to happen, man. I can't fault the dude.
Well, the thing is, you can't bank on him. That's what it comes down to. You can't bank on the 50-50 balls.
I think even Gus would agree you can't bank on making that many 3rd and longs convert, bud. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this team's got to run the ball better than it did in the second half, right? I mean, they put too much. Maybe there's too much in his shoulder in the second half. This team's going to have to. This team is going to win if they run the ball successfully. And if they didn't do that in the second half, that's the thing we've learned.
Well, the good thing is they're not. This may be the best rushing defense they play against all year.
Oh yes,
so, I think Oklahoma's pretty good.
They're pretty good, but Kansas State's they're better.
We'll see.
It seems like this game was a rushing failure. I don't get that necessarily either. Now, Drew, I get your point about a few home run balls being the difference, but it's not like they were horrible at running the football. You know,
well, they weren't good. You take again. RJ Harvey, 14 for 39. That's not good. Johnny Richardson was 6 for 76, but one of that was on a 48-yarder, and one was on.
And first of all, I love the fact that you're taking out the long run away from our days at the Student of the Game podcast where we did that together. I understand that, and it's a good stat for you to drop. But at the same time, you got to take in account the Wildcat snaps that are used in short yardage by Harvey. Granted, there were fewer of them tonight than there would be in other nights, I think, but I think that action kind of changes his number to be better, to at least get over the 3 yards of carry that you would expect, right? And, throwing in Townsend, to get a few plays in there, I thought was a solid touch. And I think McClain's numbers are getting dragged down a touch too for being things that were runs that weren't designed runs, right? That's back to Jeff's favorite statement of the stupidest stat in college football, the stupidest stat rule of college football being that. So you're looking a little too much into those numbers. For this defense being as vaunted as it was, UCF did an awful lot to keep themselves in the game for this long.
While you are correct about the direct snaps, let me twist it around. The number of direct snaps in the game, let's see, 3, 4, then you have the garbage one. So 5 direct.
That doesn't count.
You have 5 direct snaps that he ran the ball.
Right.
Not including the pass. 5 that he ran.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So now you have 9 rushes. When you're the starting running back, that's not enough. That's how good.
That's a coaching question if he's only getting 9 legitimate touches, air quotes, right?
Well, that's also that Kansas State had a very good rushing defense because, again, RJ Harvey was largely irrelevant in the running game.
They had some drives with good field position too. Granted, give credit to the defense. We've been bashing him all night. We got a fourth straight game with a takeaway, so there's that. They had a short field based on that, which could account for some of it. There's fewer touches on drives where you have big plays, like Johnny Richardson hitting that big play early. I mean, heck, UCF was down the field almost immediately in 2 plays. And then there was another short field drive started by Johnny Richardson as well. So there's aspects of that in there too that account for the number of touches that are available on the table. I still agree with you. Maybe they should have used RJ Harvey more. Maybe the run defense was what swayed that. But I'll put it this way. Until that third quarter where the ball fell out and the defense made the mistakes that it made, the structure and balance of the offense was still pretty good, right?
Well, obviously once the bottom fell, it was pass.
Right.
Passing, they passed more often than they ran. I mean, that was pretty obvious.
But it's the fourth quarter that caused that.
Yeah, it's for the most part, but it just shows how tough the running game had. We wondered on Thursday night how legit UCF's stats were going into the game on offense versus Kansas State's stats on defense. Kansas State was number 3 rushing defense going into this game. I obviously turned out their stats were legit. Their rushing defense was fantastic. Outside of those couple of chunk plays, they were solid. We didn't give up anything more than like a 12-yard scamper by McLean at some point. It was just they took it away, and then they dare, and part of that I think is because Timmy McLean was playing the game. If John Rice Plumlee was there, they'd have to play a little more conservative because of his ability to create something out of nothing. He may not have been airing the ball as much, but the guy has a knack for like doing weird stuff. When unseemable loss was at your face.
I don't know, man. Timmy McLean had some good escapes. Maybe John Rice Plumlee would have gotten out of some that he didn't. Maybe not. But I'm not as convinced that running element, if they containing Timmy McLean the way that it did, I'm not sure. I don't know how effective John Rice Plumlee would have been in this game compared to McLean too. I think
they would have made different mistakes though.
That's a good point.
McLean avoided a lot, but he always stayed behind the line of scrimmage. Plumlee doesn't stay behind the line of scrimmage. He's a tuck and run guy.
He gets you positive yardage, which helps you keep the running game going. You don't have to go, do away from it. You have 3rd and manageable versus 3rd and 20. And
you could speculate till the cows come home on what the difference would be. All we can deal with is what's in front of us,
right?
And kind of geared towards next week's game against Baylor, which I hope that despite the loss, going to 3-1, that still has a very intense atmosphere as the first home game as a member of the Big 12.
Speaking of which, Bryson, keep an eye on it. We should get the TV assignment soon. I have a bad feeling it's not going to be good for the Baylor game, 3:30 kick. It's either FS1 or FS2. Both Baylor and UCF lost today, so we'll go with that. We will play some of Gus Malzahn's post-game presser a little bit later on this show, but I do want to bring up something he mentioned that I want you both your reactions. Is he said he felt that this was anybody's game until the middle of the third quarter, where he on 4th and 2, instead of going for it, they punted to pin him back. Kansas State went 85 yards, scored a touchdown. He felt that's where the game turned. You guys agree with that?
Well, when I say it, Drew mocks me. So
it's because you picked a different play of when.
No, sir, it's during that drive that those 2 plays happened. You douche. Come on.
But here, you could say the game started to turn. But the
that's
game
what I'm saying.
No, you said, and I will pull up the line in our
from
chat.
That point,
you said
yes,
the game
it was over. They didn't get momentum back. I am right. Period.
No, that was not when the game was over. They shot themselves in the foot later. They had chances until late in the fourth quarter to come back and get into this game.
You can talk over me all you want. You're still wrong. Period.
Well, Kyle, you can think you're right, but you're wrong. Here's the thing. The game is 4 quarters long.
It's you running your mouth.
if you are 20, if you're down 7 points, you are one possession away from tying the game. So the game is obviously not over because one mistake,
artificially and be long-winded
from being right back into the game.
Because now it's
However,
a bit, and
because Timmy McClain made a terrible mistake that led to a missed field goal, that is when the wind was out of their sail.
I would make a joke about you here that's cool and personal, but I don't. Oh, are we done now? Okay.
Well, I mean,
commenters, let us know how much of that you got.
So when you guys listen to the replay, just tune out Kyle because he actually didn't say anything there.
Wow, you're still wrong.
And he hates to admit that he's wrong to me.
Bryson, let's stay for the record. This might be the.
When you say stuff that's right, I agree. I got accused.
So according to you, Ohio State would have lost the game because the game was over. But guess what?
That's not
they won the game
at all, dummy. That is not the same.
Bryson, let the record show this is the greatest night shift of all time.
No, the greatest one was where I dunked on you about Connecticut and women's basketball.
Oh, I thought it was when my wife was screaming in the
that was a live show. That was the watch-along stream. Oh, man. This is good. This has cheered me up.
Look, fun. Lonely Bumblebee really described it. We shot ourselves in every toe. Gus can say that maybe the momentum turned with that drive. Maybe Gus has a point. That's where the momentum turned Kansas State's way and didn't leave. But when UCF got out of the game once the mistakes happened.
Let's go with science here. When the scales start turning, it takes time before they completely fall. So, the momentum started to turn, but it didn't completely fall until they started, they missed that chance to at least cut that 7-point deficit to 4 or less. Once that happened, and then they started marching upfield, that was it.
Then this is what I'll say so you could stop being a hippie about it, all right? I in my mind, UCF wasn't going to overcome that momentum change for the very reasons you yourself point out, sir. They're relying too much on deep balls. They're relying too much on converting long third downs. And now their game is truly going to be one-dimensional because there's not enough time to do anything else. And the only reason they even hold on, Drew. The only reason that they even maintained it any more than that and that Kansas State didn't get a chance to put up a damn 50-burger was because Johnny Richardson converted that 3rd and 24. It could have been over right there.
What kept him in the game was the 2 personal foul calls again, or the personal foul and the PI against Kansas State.
Didn't that happen after the 3rd and 24, though? That's my point.
It also happened in the 4th quarter.
Okay. Next question.
Game wasn't over.
24 is the only reason you're even having the opportunity to bring those up.
And you know what? Your fluke plays happen. How many fluke plays happened all game? You could have easily
a fluke to keep them in the game. Why can't you grasp that?
It was a fluke that kept him in the game in the 1st quarter and the 2nd quarter and the 3rd quarter.
That's a lot of flukes, Drew. You don't think very much of this team, do you?
Well, let me ask you both.
Either way.
Let me ask you what Rodrigo Campos just chimed in. He felt that Timmy chose not to run where there was opportunities to run. Do you think he should have run more where there are opportunities there? That was what he said. There was some clear path. Thank you, Rodrigo, for chiming in.
I would say I would be okay if he just threw the ball away on those. Not necessarily take the ball and run because that may not be the natural thing for someone to want to do, but don't take the 20-yard loss. Yeah. Don't take the 10-yard loss when you can avoid it.
And no disrespect to Rodrigo, I don't remember what those plays are immediately where there was a missed opportunity for a run. I don't feel like those were there. To Drew's credit, I'm not as high on Kansas State's run defense as he is, but I will say the possibility for this being the best run defense they face in the regular season is certainly on the board. I'm with that.
You've muted yourself, Eric.
Yes, because I don't deserve. Like, you two have been magnificent. I love you both.
This is us on if the day ends in Y. This is how Kyle and I interact.
You two need to be on every show all the time together. It's just.
I feel like
who?
This is no. Kyle and my interaction is what you and Trey should be, but aren't.
Oh, they'll never get to that level.
Oh,
no. They need it. There needs to be venom. There needs to be angst. I mean, there needs that. Remember, drama. Change the channel.
You're not wrong, Drew, but they respect each other way too much. We don't have that.
Yeah, I don't discriminate. I hate everybody. See, Eric, you got to embrace being the villain.
I thought that's my role on Night Shift, the podcast.
No. Apparently, I'm the villain, and I do a great job.
Leroy Jenkins.
At least
All right,
I'm not chicken.
So
Now, let me say. Well, hold on, Kyle. How much more time you got? Because I know you got to get going. Get ready. You got to. All right. You got to write. And you got to. So do you need to go, or you want to? If you want to go, we could just give you your last thoughts.
Well, it sounds like you got a couple questions teed up. Let's get through those first, Elo.
Okay. Go ahead, Bryce. You had a question there. You're going to go in.
yes, so basically, I wanted to kind of go about this because I mentioned this on Knights of the Round Table, and I feel like that it needed to be addressed because you mentioned Kansas State's rushing defense and how, was it legit, and it was. Going into this game, I honestly thought that it was going to be legit, and so the line of thinking that I thought going into this game was you need to rush the ball to the point where when you pass the ball, it's going to hurt a lot and you make them pay. UCF did that today a lot. They did that in the first half. Like you don't get those Kobe Hudson deep balls and those deep balls without rushing the ball enough to get them just.
But you got to run for 4 quarters, though.
Offense.
Yeah, but you got to run for 4 quarters. Kansas State ran
Yes,
for
you
4
got to do it for 4 quarters. That's what I mean is that if Kansas State's passing defense got used to the pass at the end in that fourth quarter, they started passing the ball too much because they started doing it way too often.
Well,
During the first half is where they made Kansas State's secondary pay, and they didn't do that in the second half.
Back me on, or tell me if I'm wrong on this, Drew, but the portion of the game you're citing where they started to expect the pass was because the time was what it was and the lead was what it was at the time. Yeah, so to listen, that's just good coaching. Give KSU's coaching staff some credit, man. Kansas State had a good game plan, and I don't think there's too much to that.
Well, they were able to. It became very obvious that they were able to neuter the running game, and so they were able to to start to play more against the pass. And I think that's what opened up that Richardson run in the fourth quarter.
Yes,
I'm seriously, they didn't see that coming.
They didn't,
and they were able to capitalize. And Johnny's a small guy. That makes him sometimes a little bit difficult to catch in the open field, and that's what happened. Once he broke the open field, he's shifty.
Forget about it.
His biggest problem is he runs faster than his own legs. Go back and look. It happens all the time where he gets a little bit ahead of himself and falls face first in the ground.
No,
it didn't happen at that time.
Yeah, we've seen it. He had enough big plays tonight that I didn't feel like we had to beat him over the head with that tonight. But and I think another element, real quick, Drew, then I'll hand it right back. It was also Kansas State ability to control the ball with the run themselves. You got a 200-yard rusher. You give up the ball, you don't know when you're getting it back. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, if you look back at so Bryson calls it Knights of the Round Table, and all I started thinking is that the musical piece from Monty Python and the whole we're Knights of the Round Table.
I thought of that too.
King of the Tucker, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on.
But where you look at especially question number 4 on our roundtable of what's the outlook on the defense for its first major road test of the season. And, you look at it, I know Bryson kind of mentions, I mentioned it that you had to almost caveat based on who's playing. My score projection was based on Will Howard not playing. The fact that he did about that really changed it. And I even wrote it that it was, provided that, that changed everything. And as we've already established, look at Michigan. They don't even give you any sort of injury information at all. Jim Harbaugh's notorious for that. So, unlike in the pros where you have a little bit of information, this was a truly a game time decision as far as Will Howard played. And you had to plan for 2 different guys. And that also can cause a problem. That's, we've seen Gus Malzahn do that at times.
Well, it sounded to me too like the coaching staff lied to the broadcasters because they kept saying that we're going to see Avery Johnson. We're going to see. I don't think we ever did.
Well, and then they kind of like used it well, we're probably supposed to see him, but because of how good Giddens was doing, we're not going to. I mean, the truth was,
he got a magic Goku pin and he'll drill.
All right, I owe
have to bring him in.
Since we brought it up, I owe this to Kyle because he's been holding back on the broadcasters. Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh my God, I've seen dog stool that has more talent than these guys. Holy moly! I tell you, Devin Gardner deserves a Razzie for the worst broadcaster of the year.
Whoa!
As a broadcaster,
yeah, you can tell these guys are broadcasting from a studio. Oh, that's a great one. Oh, and then you see flag. Oh, wait, there's a flag.
That part I'm not going to put on him.
Oh no, I put it on them because they're stuck in their circumstance. There's nothing they can do.
So then, why are you blaming the broadcasters and not the network itself? Then, because
they work for them. Remember, the figurehead always gets the blame. The quarterback always gets the blame. It doesn't matter if the quarterback didn't lose the game.
See, here's the thing. They did an actual bad job, and you're giving people an opportunity to sympathize with them as attorney Bryson Turner here just defended them marvelously. The other part is, listen, they got dad jokes that are more than you and I could even account for. The two of us having 3 children combined, and they're not good dad jokes either. Like,
I don't have any kids with you.
You should be so lucky. Anyways, has no one seen Junior? Is that the sequel, Drew? Anyways, no, but
well, I mean, you are the tall Arnold Schwarzenegger. I am the shorter guy. I'm 5'9". You're 6'10,000.
Bad news for you. Anyways, no.
Get me chopper. You know what the broadcast feels like? Because they're in the studio and they're doing this from the studio, it's like we're experiencing the game through a watch-along stream when we really shouldn't be.
Here's the other thing. And they're trying to it's a studio because you can see the outlines of the TV screens behind them. Why don't you just get one freaking giant monitor covered so it makes it look like a real field?
We'll get one giant monitor. I shall call
it a remote as somebody who's called a remote broadcast. It does not help. That being said, that doesn't excuse some of the commentary that we heard. Like, for example, comparing Timmy McClain to Michael Vick.
More than once.
I think one of them did that. The other one tried to walk it back.
Yeah, it's called Devin Gardner, the soon-to-be winner of the Razzie.
There was a double down Bryson Turner. That is the point.
Yeah, that was Devin Gardner, who is again Razzie for 2023, 2024.
You can't blame that on the remote broadcast for saying that Timmy McClain has got a little Michael Vick because he's lefty and he's black. Okay? No.
But with all that in mind, let's give our host, who is performing well in light of having to deal with wild cards like me and Drew, a happy belated birthday on this show, by the way. But
sorry, UCF football just gave you a big, not empty gift.
Wow,
Bryson.
But
lump of coal.
Yeah, thank you,
happy.
Drew. Thank you.
Happy.
I had to watch my language there for a moment.
How is it that the person who doesn't celebrate knows about the lump of coal? What are we doing here?
Because it's all about Chris Mahana Kwanzaa.
Well, good job, my man. Moving on.
Will be interesting, by the way, next week, and this is where Bryce and I have been arguing while you two have been arguing. What I'm waiting on is the announcement of whether the Baylor game is FS1 or FS2. On Monday, we're going to find out where the UCF Kansas game will be broadcasted. Some good news potentially there. Baseball playoffs start that Saturday. The divisional round starts that weekend. Most of that is going to be on FS1. So the belief is most of the FS1 blocks will be taken by baseball. So maybe, just maybe, we will not be on FS1. We might actually have a broadcast crew at the UCF game.
That might be the most grateful I've been for baseball in some time. Thank you, Eric.
Well, the issue though that I'm seeing with that is that according to a press release that we saw from a little back, it said that the game was going to be on either FS1 or
correct.
FS2.
And they're going to make this decision momentarily. Now they might be sleeping on it because I would be sleeping too after watching that game. So maybe they'll decide tomorrow, but it's going to be decided.
Because that juggernaut that was FSU Clemson. Who doggies, let me tell you.
Well, so you got the 3-1 UCF Knights hosting the 1-3 Baylor Bears, or the 2-2 Houston Cougars going to the 1-3 Texas Tech Red Raiders.
I could argue that that Houston is the worst game.
It's a flip of a coin. Let me put it that way. Maybe that's why they're taking their time figuring that out. But I think
the problem is the viewership numbers for either of these games are going to be terrible.
Oh, it's bad. It'll be bad. And if the UCF Baylor game's on FS2, that might be the lowest viewed UCF football game on television in a long, maybe among the worst ever. But we'll get to that this week.
Well, that we can substantiate. I mean, we don't know how bad those CBS.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Drew. If you go to blackandgoldbanneret.com, there's a UCF section devoted to all the history of UCF football games, television numbers throughout, including the lowest viewed UCF broadcast. To note, UCF when they beat FIU in 2016 on the BN Sports Network.
Wow, there's a throwback for you, folks.
Yeah, that's why we keep that stuff.
Goodness gracious, Eric Lopez.
So let's be optimistic. We're hopeful that Kansas will get an ESPN or Fox slot, especially the way Kansas is playing. We'll see.
I mean, we'll find out. They have a good quarterback. That helps.
Remember, UCF's 3-1. They're not bad. Just
correct.
I mean, remember, Kansas State was a 61-yard field goal from being undefeated.
Well, they were going to go to overtime. They would have gone to overtime.
And then a team that beat them is still, in fact, undefeated. As hard as that is to believe.
Yeah, they'll be ranked most likely after Kansas State will be ranked going into next week. They were just on the outside looking in after Colorado absolutely got humiliated off the field. You can kiss them goodbye from the realms of the top 25. Yeah, Kansas State's going to.
Yeah, but Bo nixed them. I see what you did there, Drew.
Yeah, I know. Dan Lanning's he's a big tough guy talking smack about Colorado. Hey, go beat somebody real good for a change, Dan Lanning. How about that?
How did he talk smack? See, I don't get this.
Oh, he was talking smack the whole time. Hey, I hope everybody that's watching Colorado watches. Dude, go enjoy being 7-5 and getting whacked by Ohio State and Michigan next year. All right.
He's trying to fire up his team, Eric.
For Colorado, who is you have way more material than Colorado. You should not be trash talking to Colorado. You should be trash talking to actual good teams. Like everybody knows that Colorado is a mirage. I don't think anybody was surprised.
Hey, one team plays for clicks, the other one plays for wins.
Bingo, tell them to. No, yeah. I can't condone your condemning that, sir, because there's another AD who you might know. His name's Danny White. That did similar activity.
And I didn't agree with it either.
Well, it still worked is the point, though, Eric Lopez.
Yeah, it's something.
Quick question on the broadcasting. And Rodrigo Campos asked, it seems like our broadcasting and visibility is worse in the Big 12 than it was in the American, or is that way?
No, that's fair. So far, that is fair to say from that standpoint, because you now in
now,
part,
we can tell you why too.
Kent State, right? Let's be clear. How much of that is Villanova and Kent State? B. I can at least find these games. I had trouble finding some of the games in the American.
I never had trouble finding games in the American at all because they were all on some sort of ESPN broadcast.
Well, the other thing too is
linear or ESPN Plus. Here's the thing. And Eric, you'll corroborate this.
Yeah.
UCF is going from big fish in the small pond to small fish in an ocean. They're not the big draw of the conference. In fact, they're bottom end. And
BYU's a bigger draw. Right.
BYU's huge. And people don't realize how big their fan base is. Their potential numbers are huge.
I'll admit it. I don't realize it.
They're the school of the Mormon Church, and their reach is humongous. So they just have to make people want to watch college football.
Well, and I think, Drew, you made a good point on the Slack the other day. There was some television news that will impact the Big 12, which is WWE's SmackDown show is leaving Fox. That's a show that airs on Friday nights on Fox.
And that
next year, that's going to leave
2024.
Right. They're going to go to USA Network. And Brett Yormark's even commented about this on Media Day. Look for the Big 12 once the new TV deal kicks in next year. Big 12 is going to have a lot more Thursday, Friday night games. And that's where I think UCF benefited from that from the American. They played a lot of Thursday, Friday night games. They usually would get the best American TV slots, whereas the Big 12 so far, they've been obviously pushed back. So I think
you have requirements. You have requirements as part of your contracts for a minimum number of games on certain channels. So UCF was very attractive to fill those slots.
Yes.
When you have Texas's, Oklahoma's, Kansas State's, TCU's, UCF just falls down. And you look at the numbers now; they're not good. And, UCF isn't we're kind of being UCF's being exposed here a little bit of not being as big as they thought they were as far as on the television.
Well, to Drew's, I'm going to defend Drew on this because we've complained about the TV slots they've gotten. For example, the FS1 7 p.m. slot against Boise. Nebraska just had that same time slot last week and drew over 700,000 viewers for that game compared to UCF Boise, only 300. To Drew's point, I know people hate on the Big Ten, but one thing Big Ten does is no matter what channel they're on, eyeballs come. The Michigan game that was on Big Ten Network drew a big number, outdrew the NBC game. There are certain brands that.
And here's the other thing.
I'm not trying to compete with the Big Ten. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is taking Villanova and
no, that doesn't help. You're right, Kyle. You're right.
Well, remember,
it's just as big a factor. If the number we're seeing for that is the same as Norman in playing Oklahoma or anything, any of the bigger name Big 12 schools that are on the docket, I will share in your concern.
That's not going to happen. Oklahoma, they're going to get a good TV slot and they'll get a big number for that.
Yeah, here's the other thing that people don't realize. There are a lot of complaints about FS1. Do you know that FS1 is available on more TVs than ESPN?
Yes, correct. I think you're right. A lot of people don't know that. The problem is not the easiest channel to find.
It's not the easiest channel to find, but it's there.
Boy,
if you look for it, you can find it. The problem is the casuals. You don't find the casuals.
That's my point. Yeah, the lazy ones, not the casuals, the lazies. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you give Big Ten the Big Ten one thing. The way their TV deal is structured, they are really going for the casual viewer. And I got to imagine that the ACC doing that deal with the CW does a similar thing as well.
Well,
when you got to lead in like One Tree Hill, how can
following the ACC championship is the Gilmore Girls.
Oh, good God!
Hey, Chad Michael Murray's got a new show on CW.
But the truth is, you add on to
just like the Jan Michael Murray reference. I think I'm done.
Yes. In fairness, let's let Kyle go. The poor guy has an article to finish writing, and he's driving to Jack. Who the Jags playing?
They are hosting the Houston Texans to try to take.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I thought you said this could be a good football game.
Oh.
Well, no, Elo said that.
Eric.
Wait a minute. He got C.J. Stroud, Drew, your boy, C.J. Stroud.
I am curious to watch C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson play in person, and hopefully, maybe we'll actually see the Jags score a touchdown for the first time there at Everbank Stadium this season. That might be a little bit fun.
So what we're seeing is we're going to see a 6-3 game by the time this is done.
Wow! Despite that, please follow Kyle's coverage of the Jaguars. It's going to be worth it, regardless of what Drew says.
At the very least, it'll be fun. Exactly. Make sure you check it out on the Jaguar Report of SI, also on the 3-point conversion.
And what do you got us for working on Banneret there, Kyle?
Yeah, well, I do. I am still working on night class, and I have most of it going here. Probably going to try to drop that tonight or early tomorrow morning, depending on how things going. Probably late tonight because I don't want to wake up extra early to finish it. And so look out for night class upcoming. And listen, hopefully my throat will be well enough and I can actually appear at a damn presser this week to see about Gus Malzahn's comments further about the post game, about this past game against Kansas State, and heading into the home debut at the for the Big 12 Conference, hosting Baylor. Should be a big old fat hairy deal, 100%. Gentlemen, go ahead.
Go ahead. We appreciate your contributions on the show.
Absolutely, gentlemen. An honor, joy, and privilege. But until next time, fellas, class dismissed.
Yeah, I have to mention as Kyle hangs up that when he mentioned clearing my throat, all I can hear was "Let me clear my throat." That's all I can think of.
Oh,
okay.
I'm gonna have that stuck in my head now.
First, Drew, go to detention, and now class dismissed.
I live in the principal's office.
I feel like that's not the first. Yes, I understand.
Well, of course, in reality, I've had to make a few trips to the principal's office for my daughter. So.
Whoa! Wow. Okay. Right.
So I mean, yeah, actually, it's kind of a factual statement.
Rodrigo Campos says if we ever have a game on FS2, it's because it's not available on YouTube TV. Is that true right there?
That is actually, as somebody who just had YouTube. I just had YouTube TV for a free trial. He's right, actually. There is no FS2, so good luck. Good luck. But hey,
go find an IPTV stream.
What certainly I think helped in this one, you have no idea how happy I was because that my family was actually up in Gainesville for the Florida game this week, because I was actually able to watch both the UCF football game on one TV and then the UCF soccer game earlier today on that happened during the first half on the other, because you can multicast with the ESPN app on Apple TV. And so when UCF was in the American and all of it was on ESPN, you could do the multicast thing no matter what. But now with some of the Fox games on there, you can't do that anymore. So
nobody cares. The TV viewing ship is what it is. We don't know, by the way, to answer John Rice Fleming, we're not going to know what his status is until Gus tells us, if he even tells us. For all we know, could be a surprise. But I think the expectation is that he's going to miss a few games. It's not like he's going to come back next, right? I mean, we think it's going to be a multiple games.
I think it's going to be the Oklahoma game because you basically played half the season. You got the bye week. So I think that's the day they're circling and aiming for. If it happens to come before that, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But I don't expect him available for Kansas or anything like that.
We got people saying that they do have FS2 on YouTube TV. So you might have it. It depends also on the package you have as well. That might play a factor. Some of your decisions. I have FS2. I will have to DVR it to remind myself because it's a hard channel to remember. Nobody goes there, but it is what it is. All right, Drew. So let's ask you this: What do you want to? What are you now? You're going to be at the game for the Baylor game.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to see next Saturday?
I want to see, less sucking. No, what I want to see is progression. Make up issues that were caused here. So get a do-over. I want to see less 50-50 balls thrown by Tim McClain. Stop trying to always look for the home run hit. Just get on base. Just get a first down. Get some small yardage, but just make it positive. Throw the ball away. Don't take a sack. Be more aware of your surroundings. Don't run out of bounds because you're looking too far downfield, not realizing where you are. I want to see the team be able to reestablish the run after really it being neutered for the most part. I want to see the defense find a way to perform outside containment, which I knew was going to be an issue coming in, and it's been dogging them all year. And we have to see guys starting to get healthy. Ricky Barber being on a snap count really hurt. So we need to see players come back and be able to start contribute again. This is an opportunity. Baylor's not very good, but you can't just rest on your laurels. They need to reestablish a positive momentum because then you've got more games coming up. You've got Kansas, and then you've got you have a bye week, and then you got Oklahoma. So you need to reestablish positive momentum. That Kansas game, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be real tough. It's it's a road game against a pretty talented team that, when healthy, can score on anybody. So
well-coached team too. Like they're gonna be ready.
Let's be
now. The good news UCF has, Kansas plays Texas the week before, so you're hoping from a UCF perspective that maybe that Kansas spends a ton of, that gets beat up by Texas physically, regardless of how the game turns out, to where maybe they come in a little limping, a little bit going into the UCF game, maybe have a bit of a letdown.
Right. And you look at how Kansas did against BYU. They obviously avoided the trap, of overlooking them and looking towards Texas. So, but let's be honest. Granted, a lot of fans don't know who Lance Leipold is, but he is a future Hall of Fame coach. I mean, he's a lock Hall of Famer. People don't realize this guy.
He's not making this up, folks. This is a legitimate. This is not a farcical comment. This is an actual comment. He's going to be.
He's the most successful coach you probably never heard of.
And he's done a magnificent, and we'll get to Kansas in a couple of weeks, but he's done a magnificent job at Kansas. The fact that he's made them respectable to the point where, hey, we think they could be a top half Big 12 football program the way they could be. They could be a top 4 team this year, top 5. Who knows? That's a credit to him. So we'll get to more of that for the Kansas game
Well, we got plenty of time. That right now it's onward and upward, looking toward.
Well, and I'll say this: the Baylor game is interesting because Baylor has had a miserable start to the year, but they have Dave Aranda is a smart defensive coach. I mean, Baylor won the Big 12 a couple years ago. My concern will be, Drew, what tricks does Dave Aranda have defensively to try to fool Timmy McClain and UCF?
Well, I don't know if these guys have the horses. This is not a good team. You know, they had a losing record last year. In 2021 they were great. So I mean, it's been a downward trajectory. And this year it's not been clean. The loss against Texas Tech was just absolutely unbelievable. But the thing is, they got a tune-up game this weekend.
They got tuned up by Texas.
Yeah, they got tuned up. I'm talking about last weekend.
It was the beat Baylor. Utah beat Baylor, so they beat some FCS school, I think.
Yeah, they played LIU, Long Island.
That's what it was. Woo.
And of course they're gonna win that game. Yeah, that's pretty much a given. But you know what? The fact that they got rocked by Texas, may, as you said with Kansas, may play into UCF's hands. This is a team that's down. Kick them while they're down. Step on their throat, and just take out the aggression of the things that didn't work last week, and be like, play angry, play with a chip on your shoulder.
Play with some fire, play with passion. Just
that's how UCF has always worked. They've always been better off when they played angry.
Baylor, I will say, I'm looking at their stats. They did come in to this week 19th or they're 1-3, 19th in the nation in passing yards allowed. Rushing defense 105th.
They've struggled. They have Dave Aranda, and Baylor has struggled immensely. It'll be
they're not very good.
But this isn't. It's an historic home game, Big 12. To me, I actually think UCF playing in the Big 12 will start to hit next week. It's weird when you're on the road and you're watching the game on TV. Yeah, it's a Big 12, but when you're next week, I think watching that game, watching the logos on campus, I think it'll hit home that you're Big 12. I think it's going to be a great crowd. I think it'll be a loud crowd. I do think UCF needs to get off to a good start, Drew, because if they struggle, I could see the crowd getting a little restless and a little murmur a little bit. It could get negative at times.
We have seen, guys get booed off the field before. It's not unprecedented.
Yeah.
Though I think
the start of the game is going to be important.
Well, UCF usually starts off pretty well.
Yes. Yes.
The fact that you only put 3 points on early in this game was a little bit of a surprise. But that UCF is good, because usually the first 15 plays are scripted. They're good at the scripted portion. It's when things become unscripted that things kind of start getting a little wonky. But I think UCF's going to come out swinging. They're going to test Baylor and just see what they bring. But they're going to reestablish the run. That's what I think they're going to go back to that. They knew Kansas State had the run defense. Baylor does not. So they're going to go back to that and take pressure off Timmy McClain and allow him just to be.
Interesting. All right. No, I was grabbing do you want to hear what Gus had to say, Drew?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. Let me load up Gus and hear what he had to say following UCF's loss to Kansas State.
They rushed for 281 yards, and we rushed for 143. That was probably the biggest thing, that stands out to me. They were 9 of 15 on third downs. I think they only punted once. Really disappointing the penalties too in that drive. That was talking about 85-yard drive. We had them. We were getting off the field. I guess it was 3rd and 6. We had a late hit or something, and then we had a hands to the face, 30 yards worth of penalties. So, bottom line, this shows us where we're at. We're going to play really good. We got to play discipline. We didn't do the things that it takes to get a quality win against a really good opponent on our home field. We got to go back. We got to clean the things up. I still think we got a really good football team. We just got to do things better. And our quarterback That was his first rodeo in this kind of environment. You know, there's a couple things that he'd like to have back that I think that he'll improve on, but he did make some plays in the passing game. We needed some of the big plays, and he made some of those. But like I said, overall, we just didn't do what it takes to win against a quality opponent on the road. Questions?
You just talked about your quarterback making plays. He made a big one towards the end of the first half. What was the feeling at halftime after that flea flicker? And obviously we're going to be in good position getting the ball.
We felt pretty good, and then went down. I guess we scored coming out of halftime or whatever to take the lead, and so we felt like we had some momentum. But give them credit. I mean, they lined up. We had trouble stopping them. I mean, they second half I think they scored on every one of their possessions, and so it was tough. And then we had a 3-and-out, and we got down there on the 30-yard line on 1st and 10, had a double move called. They bailed out, and then we scrambled around and took a sack, and next time we just got thrown away.
Yes. How much you talked about this week about preparing for the environment, using crowd noise maybe to kind of help you guys out. How much was that a factor in the second half? You guys had a couple of delay games and Timmy at times.
There was one of those times we didn't get to play in fast enough. It wasn't on him. We got to get to play in faster, and then we had some checks and things like that, and that wasn't good. But yeah, that was on us as coaches.
What's the most frustrating part about the penalties, the lack of discipline?
Well, I mean, that's coaching. That's my responsibility. We have 10 penalties. Obviously, I've got to do a better job, and we will. We'll there's quite a few things that we'll correct, and we'll start on. We'll get back.
You use the term measuring stick. First Big 12 game, what did you take away with your team and where they need to be?
Yeah, we did some good things. We just didn't do what it took to win. We've got to grow up. I mean, that was our second start for our quarterback. We started a new center. I thought for the most part, both those guys did some good things. We had a couple of our top guys that weren't able to play, but I really think we got a good team, and I know we'll improve. I got to believe that's one of the best, if not the best team in our league, or one of them. And we played a tough environment. We knew we were going to play well. Now we did expect to play well, and we expect to come in here and win. And give them credit; they're a really good team. They're really well coached.
What do you think your guys learned tonight?
That we got to play better, and we got to be more disciplined. And it all works together. I mean, we need to coach better too. I mean, it's all of the above, and when you play a quality opponent like that, you know exactly where you're at, and everything gets exposed, which is really good moving forward. Now and there's not any question, oh, yeah, we're really good in this area, or we're not as good. No, we know. So the good thing is we know what to work on, and, the goal is getting better, and I really believe we will.
More on Timmy. He had some big moments, but also had some moments of decision-making.
Yeah, and I think all those are correctable. I really do. I mean, they're all correctable things, and it's very important to him. Like I said, he did some really good things too, and every time he goes out there, he'll do better.
Defensively, what did you think? I mean, like you mentioned earlier, you guys couldn't really stop them in the running game. They really were able to kind of run almost like little defense. Yeah,
that surprised me. I thought we'd do a better job stopping the run. Giving them credit. I mean, the running back rushed for 207 yards. Yeah, I mean, we didn't stop them. We got some things we got to correct in our run defense, and we will.
What do you think about their quarterback, Will Howard? And there was some question whether he would play or not, but he obviously did.
Yeah, he ran pretty good too. I mean, he ran good. I mean, he's a real guy. He's a real quarterback. A really good player.
What are you most disappointed after a game like this?
Just the fact that we had an opportunity. I really felt like early third quarter, middle third quarter, and we didn't do the things it takes to win. In an environment like this against a team. But this was the first conference game, first losses. A lot of football left. I really believe we got a good team. Matter of fact, I know we do, and we'll rebound. And this will be a really good growing moment for our team and our coaches too. Because, like I said earlier, now we know where we're at.
Kobe Hudson had another big performance tonight. Does that continue his growth through practices and everything?
Yeah, like we talked about last week, didn't surprise me at all that he played well.
You mentioned the changes along the offensive line. How do you think those turned out?
Yeah, we had a new starter at right tackle, new center. We got to get to a point where we have the same five. I think we're getting closer. There were some good things. I think we had a couple holding penalties, a couple key holding penalties and big moments. There was one that we had the ball back the 50-yard line. It was like a 3rd down and 13, and we got a hold back on our 10-yard line. But anyway, we just need to get our 5 and start growing together. But, like I said, we got to run the ball better. Like I said, look at the stats, and 281 to 143. That doesn't set real well with me. So we'll work on that too.
We talked about first impressions. What kind of a first impression do you think you guys left for everybody else in the league?
Oh, I don't know. You'd probably know that better than me. We're disappointed we got beat. We didn't do good enough to win the game.
Because your defensive front didn't get much pressure early on. Is that just the system on what the blocking schemes?
I don't know. They got a good offensive line, okay, but they were able to run the football. Anytime you're able to run the football, that takes away some of your aggressiveness. I think that probably had something to do with it. We didn't hit the guy very many times.
All right, that was Gus Malzahn on the post game. First of all, thank you to Brandon Hellweg of UCFsports.com, who is in Manhattan. That was courtesy of him and his video. That's why he's one of the best. He's done this now, covered UCF for now 23 years. So special thanks to him for the video. I know we got a lot of fans too on the UCFsports.com dungeon listening right now to the show as well. Thanks to him. Also, thanks to Trace Choco, Matt Michelle, and then Darren Strophus from Wesh. They made the trip to Manhattan, Kansas. They were the ones that were asking Gus the questions there on the postgame. So I wanted to make sure to give proper credit for that because I want to make sure the audience was able to listen to what Gus had to say. And I'll say this, Drew, I want your reaction to what he had to say. But the thing I appreciate about Gus, he'll take it on him as well. He's not one that's going to, he'll say pretty much blunt, hey, we didn't do a good job at executing as a players, and that's on us too as coaches. He will take it on him. He's not. Other coaches like to always say, well, we got to do this better and they're better. He's one that'll take it on the chin. And if he feels that way, I always appreciate that from Coach Gus. What's your takeaway from what he had to say?
Well, the first thing that came to mind is now I know, and knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe. That was by far the first thing that came to my mind, which probably not what anyone else was really thinking at that point. Here's the truth. You win as a team, you lose as a team, but a good leader, when things are going well, gives everyone else the credit. And when things go wrong, they take the blame. And Gus Malzahn is a good leader. He knows that in the end, the buck stops with him. Things didn't go well. I'm responsible. This is my team. I appreciate that honesty and that, being cognizant of the morale of your team. Obviously morale goes down after a loss. So one of the ways to help with that is to eat the loss. Take responsibility. These are still kids. They're young, and it's easy for them to get caught up in the wrong things as far as on the morale situation. So you don't want that to get too far into things. You still want to analyze what happened, and there'll be film review and everything, but you have to shed the loss really quickly because then you're on to the next game. So I think that's one way of doing it is by, taking the loss more on himself so that the players don't let it eat them.
Talked about the discipline. We said a lot of the stuff he said. Got to clean up some things. Can't make some of the mistakes they did. What'd you think of his comments about starting the new center and the line and he wants it to gel? And we had a comment in the chat, ironically, right before we played the Gus comments about talking about how Kansas State's offensive line has they're experienced to playing together. Whereas UCF's still trying to figure out the line there. I was interested.
Yeah, each of the last few years, it's been patchwork. There has not been consistency along the offensive line, and you're going to have problems. I don't think the offensive line actually did all that bad. They did. Tylen Grable he probably was really the only one that got absolutely chewed alive, and he was the cause of a number of losses and hits and quarterback sacks and stuff. He was just absolutely terrible. But I thought the rest of the offensive line was actually serviceable. They were able to give Tim McClain time on a number of occasions, and he was able to do something. was able to stay, standing in the pocket, make a play. It was on the other side of the ball that was completely one-sided. He even talked about the lack of explosiveness because of how good the running game for Kansas State was doing. They just couldn't quite get it together at all and couldn't really cause any disruption. They couldn't disrupt the running game. They couldn't disrupt the passing game. I think even though there were starter changes on the offensive line, I think the defensive line's lack of production was more concerning because you would think this team with this talent would have done better and should have done better.
Right. Agreed. No, well said.
No, yeah.
I think
because I think a lot of the things that led this team to lose were those mistakes. And I think and like Gus said, I mean, those are things that are while it does make you very angry that these things should have been avoided, but it happened anyway. The flip side, the glass half full perspective of this is they are very easy to point out and say, this is what we have to improve on. What the things like avoiding delay of game penalties, not, making sure we don't do those, roughing the passer or those specific holding penalties that really shouldn't have been called. Those very costly penalties that just change the way a drive goes. It changes the direction of a drive entirely. Avoiding those types of penalties are really what can help you win ball games or keep you in.
It's hard though, with especially holding calls, because there's holding on every play. The question is, do you get caught?
Well, and the other problem is, I watched a lot of college football today, and I've said this: college football, and Chris Fowler even made this comment. It's a sloppy product right now across the board. Like it's kind of crazy. It's a mess because everybody's going high spread. You're trying to juggle these rosters. You got dealing with, what to fit. I mean, it's never crystal clear. It's never going to be clean. You just hope it's not, a big mess. So you're always going to have some mistakes. I think the big thing, though, as Gus is pointing to, don't make mistakes that beat you.
The game has changed fundamentally. It's the talent pool is shrinking. And I think it's going to continue to as we get more information of how damaging the game of football is to people's bodies. And what you're going to see with that talent, with the spread of talent of what's left, it's just like spreading butter on toast. You get it in one area, obviously it stacks up, but as you spread it more on toast, it's going to start to level out. You're not going to have as much. So you're going to have more sloppiness because you basically have guys who may have ended up being second stringers as starters. And that's going to, that's across the board, every position, everywhere. And I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's actually going to progressively get worse as more and more information comes out about the physical dangers of playing football.
I agree. And I think when you're trying to play fast, like a lot of these college teams are doing, trying to go up tempo, no huddle and everything, you're going to make more mistakes than not because you're kind of going chaotic to some extent.
Absolutely.
So it's more of a chaos done. Again, I've argued about, I think the product's definitely not great. Now, today was a good day. There was a lot of good games. The Ohio State Notre Dame game was unbelievable.
That game was nuts. And
incredible game.
I don't like it because it's Ohio State and Notre Dame, and I hate these two teams.
I know. It was boring. It was a hard-fought game. Unbelievable finish.
And the ending was nothing short of ridiculous.
Those are two good teams. Those are two of the top 10, top 15 teams in the country.
They played it. They played like top-end teams. I mean, it wasn't like the Big 12 where defense goes to die. It was quite the opposite. I mean, those defenses rose to the occasion and held each other in check. And just when you thought the game was over, it wasn't.
No, I mean, if you get a chance, watch the game.
Yeah.
And the broadcasters were on site. What about that? It was good.
Who would have thought the broadcasters on site, that makes the game even better. Yeah,
that was a good game. Florida State Clemson was wild. That was a fun game. LSU Arkansas played a good game. Those are good games. A lot of good games today.
Clemsoning is a thing again. It's back.
Yeah.
I
missed it.
I would have loved to have seen it, maybe next week. Them Clemsoning a game, but hey, they had this game in the bag. They really did, and they blew it. Badly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they really did. It's unfortunate, really, because I honestly thought that this game was going to be like, all right, it's close we're midway through the third quarter. It's close, tied up, that type of thing. And then it just wasn't. That's what I think a lot of people are going to come, because look, defense goes to die in the Big 12 all of the time. But the other flip side, let's have full perspective of that, is you're usually in the game for the most, for a lot of it. You're in the game. We saw Tim McLean carve up the Kansas State pass defense at times for big plays. They took advantage of Kansas State's secondary, but unfortunately, Kansas State secondary was just able to wise up at the end there when they started passing ad nauseum, and then we end up getting the mistakes, and then
I mean, it adds up, and especially when you wear down, you get tired, you make mistakes. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
All right,
and that's where the mental mistakes, the delay of games. I mean, that's a complete unforced error. I mean, that's you're not paying attention to the play clock. I mean, come on, that's elementary level stuff. There's no excuse for that, and that is squarely on the quarterback. You got to be aware of your play clock.
Sloppy. It's just sloppy.
As you get tired and run down, you start to lose focus of things, and you make those kind of mistakes, like mistakes you don't normally make. You make focus errors. You push guys from behind after late. That's when you wear down. So maybe the strength and conditioning program needs a little bit of work. I don't know.
Ooh. We'll see what happens.
Asked what was happening with us having a few delay of games and getting so close many more times. I remember with one of them, I think that when we lined up on a very 4th and short, we were trying to get them to go off sides, and Gus wanted to save the time out.
That was putting faith in the defense by punting. They wanted a little extra field. That was by design. But the other ones were not by design. I wasn't paying attention. I got to the line late and couldn't get the ball off.
All right, well, we get out turnover attentions. Baylor should be a historic week. A lot of excitement. First Big 12 home game against Baylor. More importantly, Drew's going to be in the stands, people. Drew's going to be in the stands, people. And there's a rumor, Drew, that you and I might actually be in the same premise, and we actually get to meet in person for the first time.
It's because we're the same person.
Where has there ever anyone that has physically seen Eric Lopez and Andrew Gluchov in the same room at the same time?
No, because we never have been.
That's true. That is true. I mean, our appearance though in that UCF documentary a couple years ago was phenomenal.
That's some DC comic stuff right there.
Yeah, I mean, he never sounded so good.
Thank you.
I remember when that first happened, he goes, "I've been doing this for 6 years, and I never sounded so good."
Wait, Drew, take off your glasses. There we go.
Eric Lopez. It's Andrew. It's Eric. It's Andrew.
Well, that's gonna be fun. Baylor, UCF, 3:30 kick. That'll be fun. We'll see what happens. So, I know there's gonna be a lot of festivities going on. I believe UCF softball is going to be honored at the game. That's kind of why I will be there, because I've been asked to be there.
It is the only reason why he's giving this game any attention.
Well, somebody's got to if this game's on FS2.
Well, hey, I don't have the words intent.
I would be there. And I have AT&T,
of course.
so I can actually, follow the game or other games online.
Well, let's not forget, of course, that they can honor with that. The UCF will honor the 10th anniversary of the 2013.
Is that official? That official? Or maybe it is. I don't know. Should be.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean,
people can kind of. What I mean is that people will give the game significance, even if UCF doesn't officially do that. I mean, people are going to say like, "Oh yeah, I remember when we played Baylor in the Fiesta Bowl in 2013."
Well, we're going to see a lot of clips. You're going to see a lot of clips of that probably throughout the week, through various.
Is that like people this week? I remember when I was in Kansas State in 2010.
Well, I feel you've got a couple stories from the stands there, for sure.
Oh, I have many stories. And for me, it's actually like I love going on road trips. But the best part about road trips was because, the after game, like one in particular, I was in the marching band at Penn State 2002, and one of the bus broke down. And as a result, we got to play pickup football in a parking lot for a while. I mean, that's where memories were made. I mean, it was cool being in the stadium with 102,000 people after they just expanded and being able to hear a pin drop after UCF closed the game within a field goal. But it was also really cool to be able to, in the marching band, play against your band director and pick up football in a parking lot because your bus broke down. It's the little things that add up.
Well, it should be a lot of fun. Shaq will be in the West Virginia game. DJ Pauly, I guess, is doing the other games. I don't know who that is.
It's DJ. I don't give a crap.
Thank you. Very good. Well said.
Who's that Jersey Shore guy? I mean, dude, that was 10 years ago. Let it go.
Very good. All right, Drew, we're gonna let you go. Final thoughts, Drew, before we let you go.
Disappointing it was a loss, but you know what? You win some, you lose some, and there's going to be growing pains, in going into the Big 12. And UCF may be the most ready out of the 4 new programs, but that doesn't mean they're going to, contend for a championship. This isn't like going from Conference USA to the American, which had a couple of strong programs and a bunch of also-rans. Even with a down season for the Big 12, this is still a good conference. And it's going to take time for UCF to get there. Be patient, be supportive, and temper the expectations. Going 12-1 in the American, winning your bowl game and everything, and a potential conference championship. That's not going to happen every year. It's not going to happen all that often. Out the gate. 7-5, 6-6, 8-4. That's realistic, and I think it's important that we keep those expectations tempered.
Let's just put it this way. We don't want to be pre-Lance Leipold, Kansas. Let's just put it that way.
I think it's safe to say that UCF is not pre-Lance Leipold, Kansas. They've already won more than 2 games.
This is true. All right, Drew, get some rest, sir. Thank you for the contributions tonight, which was phenomenal. Seriously, phenomenal. We got to you and Kyle, we just got to get you on it. I don't know how we're going to do this next week because everybody's going to be on campus. We got to figure out a way, but we're going to have to get you two. Maybe we'll start the show later. I don't know, but heck, you'll be on later this week with Kyle.
I mean, do I have to do it while driving back home to the west coast of Florida?
No, we want you safe, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, you can talk on the phone. I mean, that's not a
driving
big deal.
through I-4?
Oh, please. Psh. I used to read a book while driving over the Sunshine Skyway in St. Petersburg. I mean, I-4 is a piece of cake. Once you get past Champions Gate, it's nothing.
Our producer, technical producer, Bryson Turner, we could figure out the technical side of all this. We could communicate throughout the week.
In my car, he could dangle a microphone that sits right here.
There you go. There you go. Thank you, Drew. Take care. That's Drew Gluchov joining us. Look for him on blackandgoldbanner.com. He'll be on later on this podcast this week on Night Shift. All right, we got a few minutes. Let's get into other stuff. Obviously, there was another big UCF sports event tonight, which perhaps had some controversy. I had a wacky finish. We know that. It was UCF men's soccer ranked 3rd in the country, losing to number 1 Marshall 1-0. Marshall scored a goal in the first half. Over 3,000 at Marshall. Unbelievable atmosphere. Beautiful facilities, too, with a field turf in there. It was unbelievable. But there was some controversy, Bryson, at the end of this match. Within literally the last 30 seconds, UCF they scored a miraculous goal, stealing the ball from the Marshall goalkeeper, A.J. Seals, to tie it up at 1, except it was then disallowed by the officials. There was a massive confusion. We believe what happened was they called a foul when the player, they supposedly tackled the goalkeeper. So kind of give a quick recap of what happened there in that play.
So basically what ended up happening is that, and I actually clipped this so we can save it for posterity, is that Zane Bubb did what I would argue in principle was an absolutely brilliant move for a last ditch effort type of thing, where he basically played hide and seek with Marshall's goalkeeper because
he was literally behind him, right? He was behind the entire
night. Marshall's goalkeeper would do that thing where he tosses the ball in front of him and kind of plays with UCF. He always did that the whole night. So what Zane Bubb did is he hid behind the goalkeeper, and once he tossed it out, He ran over and slid and kicked the ball away to AJ Seals, who then proceeded to score with the open goal. The problem with that is that he slid and he not only got the ball, but he also came into contact with the goalkeeper, and you can't tackle from behind.
Well,
so
and that's the big thing. The big thing
as an illegal sliding tackle.
Well, and that's the thing you made. He made contact with the goalkeeper. If he doesn't make contact with the goalkeeper, if he just gets ball, then that play's good. But because he contacted with the goalkeeper, that's why it's a foul. UCF was livid. I don't blame him because that was a dramatic moment. At first, we thought maybe it was offsides. It wasn't. It might have been offsides anyway, but we don't know. But it was definitely a sliding tackle. I think it was a good call. I think what frustrated UCF was there was no call at first when the goal scored. Then they talked about it, and then I think they reviewed it. They changed the call, or they called it a foul, and then they reviewed it. It was chaotic, and I think that would tick off a bench. You feel shortchanged there. You wonder if because the Marshall bench was lively, chatty. Throughout the match, you wonder if they talked them into that, because I don't know if they called that right away. That's why I think UCF was upset. But I do think at the end, it probably was the right call based on looking at the replay. But wow, that was a heck of a match.
I thought it was a really creative call, though. Like in principle, that was a brilliant call.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, like, legitimately, if that had worked, then that would have been
like, it almost did, literally, probably by an inch. It didn't, but it's worth the try. You got nothing to lose. There's like 25 seconds left.
There was only 30 seconds left. What else were you going to do? No, it was a brilliant last ditch effort. And honestly, if you are a goalkeeper now when you play against UCF in the future, just look over your shoulder, and I mean that literally.
Well, maybe the Marshall goalkeeper. I think they picked up on that on film, probably with the Marshall goalkeeper too.
Very true. Very true.
Crazy match.
That's it though. Looking at the stats, by the way, Marshall #1 in the country, UCF #3, and looking at the stats here, UCF was actually able to hang with them pretty good, I would say.
They had an opportunity. Dorado had an opportunity with a goal opportunity in the first half, didn't convert when the goalkeeper was out of the net, and then a few seconds later, Marshall countered and scored a great, beautiful goal. So UCF had some chances. Tough place to play. Great atmosphere. By the way, man, why is everybody having better facilities than we do? I was jaw dropping how nice looking that Marshall facility is. And I don't want to hear the excuse that they invested money in their soccer program. They don't have money either. So, man, we got a lot. We got a lot of work to do facility-wise at UCF over the next decade or so with the Olympics.
Well, the broadcasters were talking about comparing the Marshall to like a Premier League team or like an English soccer team. I think, honestly, Marshall really took cues from like the small, soccer environments in English soccer, because I watched.
Oh, credit.
Because I've seen like, videos and photos of like smaller, like non-league English soccer facilities, and that reminded me of Marshall's soccer environment.
The jersey look, right? Yeah. I agree.
Like those people hanging on the fences on the other side. Yes. Like I've seen that, and like when looking at non-league matches every once in a while on social media, I've seen stuff like that.
No, credit to them. Good match. Marshall's in great shape too. They beat JMU, James Madison, last week. Beat UCF now. The top two teams in the country might be in the state of West Virginia. With Marshall and West Virginia, maybe the two best teams moving forward. But UCF's going to be fine. I thought they handled themselves well. They had some chances. They go to Kentucky next week. That's a tough one. Kentucky's a desperate team. They were the preseason favorite in the Sun Belt. Hopefully UCF can get a result there. And then the schedule softens up much more for UCF as they'll finally be back home October 7th. But I still think this is a really good UCF soccer team. Hopefully they don't drop too far in the polls. I think that would be wrong. But we will see what happens. We'll have more on the UCF soccer. Bryson will have a nightcap this week on blackandgoldbanneret.com on the big men's soccer match there, as well as shout out to volleyball. They go 2-0 at Cincinnati in opening Big 12 play. They're 2-0. They beat Cincinnati in 4 sets Thursday, swept Cincinnati on Friday. They will come home for their first Big 12 home game against Oklahoma Thursday, Friday night. From the venue, ESPN Plus will have it. Despina Barton and Aaron Campbell will be on the call for that. Women's soccer, they beat Houston on the road 1-0 on Thursday. They're playing at home Sunday against Kansas, 1 o'clock big match for Coach Sahaydak under the radar, Bryson. Here, 2-0 in league play to start in the Big 12. If they can beat Kansas, they're 3-0. So it's an important home match for Coach Sahaydak and UCF women's soccer. So those are the fall sports going on right now in the Big 12. I mentioned next weekend, a busy week. Football, obviously their first ever Big 12 conference home game against, choked up there, Baylor, 3:30. Softball will be honored for their American Conference championship during that game at some point. Perhaps they do, so it's going to be a busy, fun week, but I know we're looking forward to that, Bryson, a lot of level. Give me your kind of tease that nightcap, what's coming.
So nightcap this time, well, of course, we'll talk about men's soccer. Update, by the way, number 4 Akron drew St. John's 1-1. So I haven't. So I think UCF should be able to stay in the top 5 because Marshall's a really good team. So we'll see what that happens. The United Soccer Coaches Poll always releases their rankings on Tuesday afternoon. So keep an eye out for that. But my nightcaps drop on Monday where we'll see all of the Olympic sports, talk about the women's soccer, talk about volleyball, talk about also you have some men's golf and tennis action as well going on.
You're going out to soccer? Are you going to soccer Sunday?
I was already planning on going to campus to study for a test I have on Monday. So yes, I was aiming on popping over there while I was.
There you go. So we'll have some post-game press coverage on Black and Gold Banner here on the YouTube channel. We'll have volleyball coverage throughout the week. Nick Porcelli will be helping out with Bryson as well on that department. And then next Saturday, I don't know what we're going to do, but we are going to be on night shift. Some of us might be on campus. Some of us may not. We haven't figured all that out, but we will be on after the Baylor game somehow, some way. I don't know how we're doing this, Bryce, but we got to figure. We got time to. It's a unique show next week because everybody's going to be on campus in some capacity at some point.
Yeah, it's always fun when multiple Banneret guys are in the same physical space. It's always a fun time.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up here because we've gone 2 hours because you guys have been, ladies and gentlemen, you've been fantastic. You have always run the show. Thank you for all the comments. Sorry we didn't get to every question. There was a lot, but a lot of same questions. But we always appreciate the feedback and spread the word. This is where you go to watch the game, get your anger out, frustrations out, or comments out, celebration, you name it. We'll have it for you here at Night Shift. We'll have a regular podcast later in the week. That'll be on the podcast feed. We'll get you set for the Baylor game, among other things. I mentioned the YouTube channel. Keep it there. We're going to have, obviously, the post games for soccer, volleyball, and the football game next week. By the way, the basketball Big 12 schedule will come out Tuesday. I'll have something on that. That'll be intriguing there as well. Bryson, this was a fun show. I will admit, Kyle and Drew put on a show. That was fun. I actually feel better. I felt better. This helped me. This was good therapy for me. I actually feel better than I did 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I think the night shift is a very good way to just express what we're feeling. Just you want to vent, want to discuss. I think maybe we should try to rename the show Night Shift Therapy Session or something like that, or something. Because we always feel better when we talk stuff out, and I think especially with this game, because when you make a mistake and you initially do it, you're just like, oh, I could have done so much better. Like last week, I was taking a couple of exams, which is why I wasn't able to really talk about my birthday much until a couple days afterwards. But basically, once I got the scores and I see some of the questions I got wrong, I'm like, oh, come on, I really should have gotten that question right. But once you're able to take a step back and really, really examine what you did on the whole, you'll be thinking like, you know what, I did pretty doggone good, and I'm happy, and I'm all right with that. And I think with this game, it's sort of like that. It's our first game in the Big 12. We made some mistakes, sure, but when you really look at the overall performance of the game, I think we did good enough to hang around. We just made some mistakes that are easily identifiable, and I would argue that they should be easy to address going forward. And we have a good opponent coming up where we can now really get the home crowd involved, because let's face it, again, it's weird to have your first Big 12 conference game on the road. But so next week we'll be able to really properly celebrate it all together on the UCF campus, which I think honestly, I think that's always where it was meant to be. I think we always were meant to really celebrate this accomplishment together, and we'll finally get a chance to do that next week against Baylor. You're muted, Eric.
All right, very good. We keep it here. We will have a night shift next week. It might be literally after the game, or it might be a little bit after the game, depending on what we're all doing. Bryson and I are going to figure out all the technical stuff that we have to figure out on the show, but we will do that. Keep it on blackandgoldbanner.com for all the articles. Kyle will have a recap of the Kansas State game with the night class. We're going to have some nightcap with Bryson, basketball schedule. We're going to have a recap of that on the site later this week. I'll probably break that down. And a ton of more stuff. TV assignments. Well, Kansas, what channel is that going to be on? And I'll have the TV numbers for this Kansas State game.
What do you think? If you had to ballpark it, what do you think, Eric?
Not good. Ohio State Notre Dame was unbelievable. That thing will get 8 to 10 mil easily. Like, everybody was watching that game. And, you had Iowa, Penn State. That was a blowout. Texas blew out Baylor. LSU, Arkansas was a great game. LSU won. That'll get a good number. We're probably going to be around that 300 to 400,000 viewership. 300 to 450, I guess. And I think the fact that Kansas State pulled away, probably around, I would closer to be 300 to 400, actually.
Yeah, that doesn't really help either.
Anyway, but it is what it is. We can't control that. All right, that'll do it for this show. Thanks to Kyle Nash. Thanks to Andrew Gluchov. Thanks to all of you. For Bryson Turner, I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Night Shift, postgame show. Go Knights. Charge on.